Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U. And today we're asking this question: is your script missing this? Now, we'll fill in those blanks for you in a moment so you know what we're talking about. But basically, what we're going to cover is we're looking at the rewrite process and asking what's missing. You've probably heard writing is rewriting. And it's like, yeah, even after you've done your outline, you're already in rewriting. But especially once you've completed a first draft, then everything else after that is rewriting. So anything that's missing might be the thing that changes your life having to do with this. So we'll talk about how to write in passes, which is a way to make sure that everything you're doing works incredibly well. I'll give you some key components that will make a difference in the quality of your rewrite. And then we'll talk about the upcoming class, the 10-week professional rewrite. We've had over 100 writers make deals after going through this and work through the process with producers with no fear. If you ever look at any of those groups where people are talking about, the producer wants me to make changes, what do I do? And somebody will tell you not to make the changes. Please know that person doesn't understand really what works in this industry, and they don't understand how to work with producers. Once you master this skill set, you will be able to do anything you want with producers because you have higher level skills than they do. So I asked this question at one point. I had taken a rewrite class. This is 20 some odd years ago. I had taken a rewrite class. I was in a group of about 600 writers talking online. And this rewrite class, the lady who taught it gave us a process. And here's basically the process. She said, you finished your first draft. Now you go back and you start looking at the dialogue and you do what you can to elevate the dialogue. You do what you can to elevate the description and to make sure the words are the best they can be. Her process was pretty simple. You start on page 1 and you read that page, and as you see dialogue that could be improved or description or words that could be improved, you make the changes systematically all the way through. And once you're done with that, you go back and start over again and you do draft 3 and draft 4 and draft 5. So I sent out this questionnaire to 600 some odd writers and asked this question: is this your rewrite process? Is that what you normally do? Do you start on page 1 and read all the way through and make the changes as you go, mainly in these areas? When I got the answers back, 99 out of 104, that's how many answered it, said yes, that was their rewrite process. Now, and that was the rewrite process I was using at that point and not doing very well with producers. And there was a reason. So let's take it a step further. The problem with this was a couple of things. First one was early wordsmithing has a tendency to lock the script. And think about this. What if you've written a scene and you've gone through and you've made sure every word is what you want there? If somebody asks you to change it, what's the impact on you? What's that like? Are you willing to? I had a producer who came back and he wanted a different event to happen in the first scene. And Cheryl and I both talked with him, and afterwards we both agreed, yeah, that's a great event to start the movie on. Uh, it took me 4 days of looking at that scene over and over. And every time I looked at it, I was just like, but I love the way that scene's written. I don't want to change it. And ultimately, that caused me a lot of problems. And I just wish I wouldn't have focused on this. I wish I would have solved what was beneath the surface. So The perfect words make us feel like it's done. And there's a time for that. There absolutely is. It's incredibly important at the end. But it also has a tendency to shut off creativity. And really, in my case, it was kind of shutting me down. So now let's go to a full rewrite. This goes beyond that. You'll notice we have the words and the dialogue up here, which is most of what that rewrite is. Let's look and see what else is beneath that surface. So down at the bottom, if I'm doing a rewrite, if it's my third draft, fourth draft, fifth draft, I'm still looking at the story and saying, how can I make it stronger? And your story basically consists of your concept, right? It consists of your plot and how it plays out. It consists of the structure and the theme. So are you honoring the theme? Is your structure the best it can possibly be? Are you doing, are there other changes you could make on a big picture level which will make this story significantly better? And at the same time, then when you make these other changes, takes it even to another level. So the next level up is characters. Are your characters, especially your lead characters, really expressed well in this story and this script and the way it is? Are they taking actions that fit who they are? Are your two lead characters unique and interesting and compelling? Many times, you're not even going to discover who these characters are on a deeper level until after you've done two or three drafts. And if you lock them in with the words, you won't be able to make those changes. So this stuff, pretty important. Next up is situation. For most writers, this is an untapped area of opportunity. So what is the situation? You look at every scene and you ask yourself, what is the challenging situation that this character is having to deal with? Now, let me take you back to a script I read at one point. A writer came to us. Cheryl and I were producing at that time. She had an amazing pitch. I absolutely loved the pitch, and it was like, okay, absolutely, we're going to work with this. She got us the script, and it opened with two characters sitting at a diner talking to each other. And then it had a scene where two characters were walking along, talking with each other. And then another scene where two characters were playing tennis, talking with each other. At that point, I didn't really understand this to that degree, but it was pretty clear there were talking head scenes all the way through this with what actors call busy work. If they're playing tennis, that's just busy work unless this is a tennis movie and they're in the fight for their life in that particular tennis game. Make sense? So we looked at situation and started saying, how can you make this challenging? How could you set up a situation that will change things? Let's go back to that two people sitting at the diner talking. And let's say what we have is we have, a male and a female, and they're discussing their kid, their daughter, let's say, and they're having a heated argument over it. At that point, it's like the only thing that really kind of stands out is the words they use, right? Because they're not throwing things at each other and they're not doing anything like that. If we took it and set it someplace else and put it in a more challenging situation, let's say they're in court and having this same conversation in front of the judge about who gets custody of that child. Now they have a challenging situation. They have something at stake. The conflict is much, much bigger, and somebody else is going to decide. So how they perform or how they outdo the other one might make a major life decision, right? So just changing, in that case, the location, but the situation, putting it in divorce court changed everything. So be thinking about this, especially when if you have a lot of talking head scenes. Uh, Even if you could take half of them and give them a challenging situation, that could make a big difference in the read. Then after that, it's action. And this, again, we're looking at what actions can your characters take that are meaningful. And that's the important part, right? So there's a difference, between two people playing ping pong against each other as an action that's just kind of meaningless versus them getting into a fight and damaging each other's skulls. That action has a different meaning, right? And it's like a lot of times you can look at the conversation they're having and ask yourself, well, what would be an action that could deliver the same meaning as that conversation? Or you could go the other way and make it ironic action. Either way. Then, of course, then you've got dialogue and words, things that you already work with a lot. Let's go two more, number 7 and number 8. Number 7, interest. And this means you're looking at every scene and saying, how can I make it more interesting? We did a survey at one point. We had a group that had all posted their scripts, and at that time we were working with them and talking with them. I went to them and I said, how many of your scenes would you say are really interesting? The vast majority said somewhere between 90 to 98%. Then we looked at the scenes and asked how many interest techniques were used in those scenes. And I'll show you interest techniques later, but we have about 20 different interest techniques. What we found was that most people were using just a little less than an average of 2 interest techniques per scene, which meant some scenes had 4 interest techniques and some scenes had none. And they weren't taking advantage of this opportunity, right? It's like when we looked at the pros, most of the pros had between 6 to 9 interest techniques per scene. They went out of their way to make those scenes as interesting as possible. This rewrite, doing just this, could change everything for you. And then finally over here, we have subtext. And subtext, a lot of times people think subtext is trying to hide things from the audience. And sometimes it is, sometimes. But the majority of the time, what you want with your subtext is that the audience is constantly perceiving a deeper meaning than what the dialogue is communicating. Now, if you get that, it's like up here, your dialogue is saying one thing, and this is the easiest way to think of subtext. You say one thing, but you mean another. There's something beneath the surface that is the real meaning. Somebody could say, I love you, and then punch the other person. Which do we believe? And by the way, both could be true. Could be, I love you and I'm kicking your ass. So, it's like that's part of our job here, is to build that deeper meaning and have the audience perceive it so that they're in on what's going on beneath the surface. Now, that doesn't mean all of it's that way. I'd say in general, you're going to have a couple of things, 2 or 3 things in your script that are surprises that come out at some point and are revealed, and you're going, oh my God, I can't believe this. Yeah, I should have known. But all the way through every single scene, you want to have some kind of deeper meaning that the audience perceives. That's professional writing. So ask yourself, take a look. Which of these steps are missing in your rewrite process? And which of these steps do you wish were better? because again, that's part of becoming a pro. If you want to become great as a writer, the big key to that is constantly improving. I know most people go, okay, I'll just write another script and that will do it. But if you're not elevating your skills in these areas, uh, it's not just writing another script that will do it for you. When I talk to the pros, they are learning constantly. Even after they get to A-list, they're learning. So be thinking that. Now, here's the other part. As you're doing this rewrite, you want to go for a higher quality read, but you also want to increase marketability. This is what sells your script. This is what causes them to go, okay, this writer knows what they're doing. But I'll tell you, inside the industry, if you don't have something that's marketable, they're still going to think you don't know what you're doing. So anytime you can make it more marketable, you just increased your chance of success in a big way. The easiest way to do that is to do a series of passes where you intentionally make changes all the way across the script. Now, in this, you look at every scene, and let's say the pass is a character pass. You look at every scene and say, how can I build in more character? If it is you're trying to build in more interest techniques, again, how can I build in more interest? How can I pique people's interest? How can I surprise them? How can I create more suspense before we show what's really happening? How can I build in stronger reveals? There's a whole bunch of things you could do that if you just took just even really 20 minutes and looked at every single scene and asked some of these questions, answers would start popping out at you. And that can make a big difference. Every time that you find something's missing, by the way, please celebrate. Uh, what I noticed sometimes was, especially when we were producing, we'd go back to the writer and say, hey, you know what, we just read that draft. It's much better. And we still need to do something else. You missed this whole area here. And they'd be like, oh, uh, you know, and I understand. I know it. I know it's disappointing when you get to the end of a draft and it's still not perfect and that kind of thing. But the moment that you find something that is missing, it means your script is already better in the future. And this is, you know, the people that keep telling everybody their script is perfect, uh, who haven't yet looked beneath the surface, who haven't continually asked these kinds of questions, are often in store for some difficult surprises. So, you know, again, if you can move it in your mind to where you say, all right, oh, cool. Thank you for letting me know that. I'm going to go back and improve it now. Uh, your script is better and how you're going to feel as a writer is better. And then let's take a look at some improvements here. First one, making your journey stronger. The audience comes in, they sit down to watch your movie, they connect with your lead characters in the very beginning, and now they're on this journey. And the quality of this journey is going to make the difference as to whether they live that character's story and whether they love your movie or your script or not. So this is the first thing I look at. Do your lead characters have both an internal and an external journey? Here's what I've found. Some people who write dramas have incredible internal journeys. I mean, and that's one of the purposes of a drama, right? But they also need an external journey. So I've seen lots and lots of scripts that were dramas where the internal journey I thought was amazing and it was completely missing an external journey. There was no external representation of this. And that makes a difference. The other side is a lot of times people who write action scripts or thrillers have a strong external journey and almost no internal journey. Whichever is missing, go to the other one, go to that one and do whatever it takes to build it and that'll almost instantly improve the quality of the journey and the characters. Then you want to make sure you challenge your characters to the core. And the other side of this, the opposite of this, is when people say, well, I don't want to do that to my character. And what they're saying is their character has become their friend. They really love that character and they just don't feel like putting them in a bad position. Let me tell you a quick story. I was interviewing the writer of a story called a movie, 10 Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. And I said to him, I said, so, congratulations on this success. Let me ask you, was there anything you learned in writing this script that you think could help our audience? And he said, yeah, yeah, something big. He goes, I was pitching it, and I had gone to like 7 pitch sessions in a row, and everybody was saying no. And I went home that night. He said, I sat in my apartment. I got drunk. I got really angry at my characters. He said, I started throwing things around the room. And suddenly I just decided, screw those characters. I'm going to put them in hell. And he said, I started writing that script. And what I did was I made it as difficult as possible for them. Now, this was the same project he had just pitched. He had nobody saying yes to it. And so he did a rewrite where he challenged them to the core. And in fact, he said he made it his job to just make their lives incredibly painful. He wanted to punish them. He took that script back in and sold it about a month later. And it got produced because he was willing to do this. And in that case, it was like he felt forced to do it. But he said that made a big difference for him. He said after that, he stopped being friends with his characters and he started looking for how he could make their lives difficult. Here's the other part. Every act at the end of the first act, the character now has stepped into this new world or they've stepped beyond where they'd ever been before. Force that character further and further outside of their comfort zone, right? Because as soon as you start doing that, as soon as they're outside their comfort zone, we have something new. The audience, the character has no idea how they're going to deal with it, and the audience has no idea. So that makes a big, big difference. It creates unpredictability. It causes the audience to wonder and to worry. And if you can do that again, if you can do that, you are somebody special in this world as a writer. So then number 2, building subtext into every scene. So this was one of the other things I recommended earlier. Know this, every scene, there's a surface meaning and there's a deeper meaning. If all of whatever is deep you have on the surface, you have characters talking about it, you have them specifically working on it, whatever it is, then it's all on the surface. You need to separate these two and say that I'm going to build in as much meaning under the surface as on the surface. So I have people from time to time and they're like, well, I like it. I feel what's beneath the surface. And it's like, okay. And if somebody read this who didn't know you, who didn't care about you, especially if it was a reader who their job was to find a reason to say no, would they be experiencing that deeper meaning also? And so once that's really clear, then the question becomes, how do you do it? Our job is to build subtext on multiple levels, and you can easily do that. Let me give you some examples. You can build character subtext, give them a secret, a wound, something covert, having them be deceitful, either intentionally or because they got caught on something or whatever. Having them withhold, having them be afraid, all of that's character subtext. Situation subtext, there could be a misinterpretation, which, there's some scenes. What was the movie? My Cousin Vinny, the Bubba scene. The two boys are put in prison, and one of them says they always send somebody named Bubba, and then Vinny shows up and he thinks that's Bubba. And the misinterpretation scene's incredible. Absolutely, make sure you watch that, or at least take a look at it. Read it if you can. Superior position, where the audience knows something that the characters don't. Again, deception or sabotage in the situation. And then action subtext. This means the action is different than or opposite of the dialogue. So whatever the dialogue is, you go opposite. That simple version I said earlier, a character says, I love you, and then punches the other, like really punches them. That's opposite. The action is different. So number 3, make every scene more interesting. Now, I already talked about this also, but if you just go back and start looking at each of your scenes and just keep asking yourself, is this scene as interesting as it could be for the reader, not for me, for the reader? If you find any that aren't, interest techniques is the easy solution. So let me just give you a few here. Surprise, right? You set up a surprise and then deliver it at the end. And for it to be a surprise, usually you're going kind of the opposite direction, or you're having the scene be about something that has almost nothing to do with the actual surprise. Suspense, here, the audience knows something bad is going to happen or something really good, and we're wondering. Here, I'll give you a really good example. It just happened recently. We had the Oscars, and I remember the point where they're talking about Best Actress, and they cut to the 4 women in the audience who are all sitting there wondering if they're about to win the Academy Award. And that created suspense for them, but it also created suspense for us. We know an Academy Award is going to be delivered. We don't know which one it's going to be delivered to. So that gives us the surprise moment. But we're also, if you're rooting for somebody, you're in suspense. A twist. This is pretty easy. You set up a direction and then you have the characters or the situation go a different direction. Intrigue means you've got something under the surface that's being pointed to. Usually it's something underhanded. There's a scheme, there's somebody being devious, there's a scam going on, whatever it is, or something really bad has happened and nobody's talking about it. If you can create that, the audience is trying to figure out what's happening under the surface. Mystery, now you've set up a complete mystery, and that means we know usually 3 corners of the mystery, and the 4th one we don't know. We might know, somebody died, and we know how they died. They got shot, and we know where they died, but we don't know who did it. And there's your mystery. Now, this is 5 of the 20 interest techniques. The more of these you know, the more varied and surprising your scenes will be. Also, the more engaging the read will be. And then big picture improvements that make your script more pitchable. First, you want to identify the big hook of the story. This is, if a producer's like let's say you meet a producer, at Starbucks. This is the standard kind of elevator pitch, but most people, when they're doing their elevator pitch who aren't in the industry, have a tendency to want to tell as much as they can. What you want to give is just the big hook. What is it that's high concept about this? What is it that's amazing, right? What makes your story unique in a significant way? What is it like, whatever your genre is, if this is an action story, what's the action that we've never seen before, or that you've taken to a new level, or you've created in some way that is unique, and you, the moment you say it, they go, oh my God, that's amazing. I've got to see that, right? So the other thing, please do this if you're ever going to pitch. Before you do, make a list of the most interesting things before writing your story or before writing your pitch. Uh, and this, I'll tell you where this came from. We had a group that was going to go to market. This one writer, she had written like 8 or 9 scripts, so I knew she was a really good writer. But when she said her pitch, it was all just completely bland stuff. So we got to the end of her pitch, and I said, "What do you think a producer's going to say if he or she hears that?" And she goes, "I don't know. I don't know. I just don't feel like I get it." So I asked her to make a list of the most interesting things in her script because she hadn't really said anything interesting. Uh, she came back the next time and she had a list of like 8 things that were absolutely amazing, it was like incredibly interesting. And I said, "Did you say any of these last time?" And she goes, "No." She goes, "I didn't even think about it till you asked me to make that list." So just doing this, if you just say, what are the most interesting things? And when you do this, don't say my character, because that doesn't translate. It's like if you're going to say, this, if what you said was, this character just got out of a Russian prison where he had been there for 19 years. And it's like, okay, at least that's somewhat interesting, right? It goes to something specific, something we don't know anything about. You probably could add a couple of things where he was part of the Russian mob, or where he was tortured, or something that would take it to another level. But at least you're pointing to something that's interesting. And then once you have that list, then you can go back to your pitch and say, where can I build some of these things in? If what you can do when you pitch, if every sentence you say is interesting, you've got a real chance. If it's only interesting to you because you love your characters, that's not the level we're going for. That's this level, and we're going for this level up here. So, and then a safety tip. Try not to do the wordsmithing until you've got all the rest of this stuff working. And I know this is really hard. It took me a little bit to get to it. But when you're going through draft 2, if you're wordsmithing those scenes, again, you start to lock them in and you start to think they're better than they are, because you have great words. I want to hold back on wordsmithing until everything else works, until you have incredibly interesting scenes, until your story is unique in a big way. You do that, and you really do have a real chance. So this is a full rewrite model. There's a few other things, but I mean, there's a lot of details. But what you want to do, especially if you're trying to become pro or if you're trying to win major contests, is reduce your focus up here and put your focus down here, over here, and over here. If you can get number 1 through 4 working incredibly well, build interest techniques in every single scene, build subtext also into every single scene and character. Then when you go do your wordsmithing, what you'll be locking in is an incredible script. You need to master every one of these. Again, take a look at it and just ask yourself, which of those am I not my best at? And any of those could improve who you are as a writer and the quality of your writing. So if you want to master this, just stay with me for a minute. And let me just to walk you through this class, and then I'll give you a special and I've got something today I wanted to add as a bonus that I think you'll really love. This is a 10-week class. We've had winners from this program at the Nickel Fellowship. We've had 2 winners in Nickel, which I don't know if anybody else can say that. Nickel is the highest level contest in this industry. It's put on by the Academy, so it's the most prestigious. Both of our winners beat basically 8,000 writers in order to get into the top 5, the ones that they take around Hollywood and introduce to all the producers. We've had winners at the Austin Film Festival. We've had grand prizes and winners at Page International. We've had grand prizes and first places at Final Draft Big Break contest. And then we've had over 100 scripts that have been optioned from this class. So just stay with me again. I'll give you a special in just a moment on this, but let me walk you through. And this gives you a chance to look to see, are there any other skills or processes that you might be missing? So first thing you'll do, we'll send you a pre-lesson. It will tell you how to get ready for the class. We've divided this class into 2 parts. The first one is the outline part, and the second is the full script. Now, if you're asking why we're going to outline, because if you look at your script, let's say your script is 100 pages. You can bring it down to an outline that's probably 8 to 10 pages. It is so much easier to make major changes in an 8 to 10 page outline than in a 100-page script. And that's what we're looking for here. We're looking to be able to see kind of an overview and to be able to make changes and test them out and go, okay, if I set this up here and pay it off there, I can see that in this 8 pages. Whereas in the 100 pages, I'm getting lost. So we start out. You come in, you create your pitch. You now want to make sure that your pitch is amazing. It's something that has a real chance right off the bat. So that's the first thing you do. A-list screenwriters write from their pitch. They create a pitch they know will sell, and then they write from that and make sure that the script delivers on it. From there, you'll look at your structure and you'll elevate that structure until it's fantastic. Most people have good structure, not fantastic structure. So this gives you a chance to take it to a new level. Anything you can do to elevate it, especially if you're finding any weak points in your structure, wow, that's a huge opportunity. And I've talked with people about this before and asked them, have you pulled your structure out and looked at it since you did your 3rd draft? And most people just say no. They just kept rewriting the words. This could make a difference for the reader. I'm going to tell you, inside this industry, there are readers who specifically look for structure. And if they don't see something, that gives them an excuse to turn it down. You don't want that. So then you're going to build your genre conventions in. And let's go back a moment. We're in the outline stage right now. A lot of times people wrote it without thinking about the genre. That's the way I wrote my first 3 scripts. It's kind of natural. You had a story idea and you just flowed. What we'll do is we'll give you all the genre conventions. And let's say you have a sci-fi thriller. You'll go look at it from a sci-fi perspective with the genre conventions and make sure every one of those conventions are built in. The conventions, by the way, are what audiences are expecting and what distributors are expecting. So it's important if you're trying to sell your script. Then you'll go back and say, okay, now let me look at the thriller conventions, and you'll build those conventions in. Often, I've had people say this made a significant difference just because they hadn't been paying attention to it before. Number 4, now you're looking at your character profiles. How can you make these characters incredible? And it starts in their profiles. So we will give you a profile version. You'll look at your script, your outline, and lay out the profile and then see. A lot of times people have amazing protagonists, but their antagonist may be missing some components. Or their supporting characters may not be as interesting as they could be. Here you'll make sure. Then at that point, then you're going to look at each character's individual story. So again, a lot of times people have focused entirely on the protagonist. Now you're going to go over and look at the antagonist story. How is that story? Is it interesting? Is it compelling? Is it just a reaction to the protagonist? Or the other way, you might have created an incredible antagonist and then the protagonist is lacking. And then you'll do this with your main supporting characters also. At that point, now we go to major problems. So I'll give you a list of the main problems that people have in their scripts. This came from interviewing a whole bunch of script consultants. We ended up with a whole list. And then I took it to one of our development teams and we made a list of solutions. So if you look and you have some kind of problem, like let's say your lead character isn't being expressed well, or the early parts where you're presenting that lead character wouldn't draw an actor, that's a major problem. So we will give you then a set of solutions for that specific problem. Every problem that I have listed, we then have a set of solutions right next to it. So you can just go to the problem and you instantly have the solutions. You do your rewrite right then in the outline. So much easier. From there, we'll do the same thing with characters. Are your characters expressing themselves? Are they built for this story? Do they fit? Do they slow down towards the end? Do they have a great intro? Do they have a great exit? Any problems that show up, we have the solutions for them. And at that point, then you'll match the outline to the script. So now you're going to go back to the script. You've got an incredible outline. You've solved all of this stuff. You've built in all kinds of new things. You'll go back to the script and you'll look to see which scenes do you need to change, right? And it's like what usually happens out of this is when you're going through this part, you'll probably find you're changing 20, 30% of the scenes. And it's like, that's great. That's excellent. So when you go back to your script, now you have a list of the scenes to rewrite and you know exactly what they are. That just saves you so much time. You're not just starting at the beginning and working through, you are going to the exact scenes. You are making them absolutely amazing. And then from there, we go to part two. So once you've done that, we rate the entertainment value of each scene. Now, this you've probably never heard of. It's something that we came up with. I was in the midst of talking with a producer, and he says, I said, how far do you read into a script when you don't know the writer? And I was expecting one of those normal answers. I read 30 pages or I read 10 pages or whatever they say. This guy said, I read until I hit a dull scene. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah. He says, anytime, as soon as I hit anything that's dull, I put it down. It's not ready yet. So we went back and we said, how do we rate the entertainment value of every scene? So you can see where there are dull scenes. I've had people come in and tell me their script was perfect. We got to this part. They laid out their script and rated every single scene and came back and went, wow, on a scale of 1 to 10, I have about 7 that are below a 3. And it's like, yeah, a lot of those were the transition scenes, or they were scenes that just popped into their head. And they didn't go back and try to make them as entertaining as possible. So that just gave them a few more to elevate. From there, now we'll look at scene structures. And what we found was most people have a tendency to write in 2 to 4 scene structures What if you had more? Because they're just repeating the same things over and over, and after a while they get predictable. So scene structures is another thing most people don't really think about. Once you have enough scene structures to be able to surprise people consistently, you're in a different world. We'll then add meaningful action, which means you'll you'll go through and find every scene that doesn't have meaningful action, that has either some kind of busy work or has no action at all. And even if you can take half of those and make them meaningful, that makes another significant difference, both for the reader and the actor. So at that point, then it's about making sure your characters have unique dialogue all the way through, and especially your two or three lead characters. They need to be saying things that surprise people, that come from their character, that are interesting and compelling. So you've already got their character profiles from back over here. Now what we're doing is you're looking at every line from that character and saying, how can I make it better? Then you'll go to introducing your characters powerfully. This is not a small thing. It's missing in so many scripts. Uh, if an actor reads how the character is introduced and it's average, you're in real trouble. So this is actually easy to solve. Instead of saying my character introduction is just 4 lines where I can say anything I want, your character introduction, the way we do it, it's the entire scene that they're in, that they're first introduced in. And your job is to make it so an actor would look at that and go, oh my God, I got to be that. Right? It's like I've talked with actors who have said they signed on when they read the character introduction of a pro. So you can be that. Then it's about key scenes that sell you. And there are 7 scenes in your script that producers are looking at, and they are thinking certain things that if you understood them, you know that sells you. The opening scene of your entire script is one of them. It should be your absolute best writing because that's the first experience they have of you. So if it's amazing, you're in great shape. If it's a talking head scene that is just 2 people talking to each other about their lives and that kind of thing, and it doesn't go anywhere, you're in real trouble. There are 7 of these. At this point, you will go pay special attention to those because it increases the chance that you can make a deal. Then you test your description. You finally wordsmith to perfection. This is the part, and this is what most people do for their second draft. We hold it off until the very end after you've built all of this in. And that's part of what makes your script amazing. Now, one more thing I wanted to tell you here. So the dates on this program, it starts on June 23rd. The regular price is $350. Let me give you a special. This is for the first 10 writers. Then the next 10 get a different price. I'll tell you about that in a second. But it's $350 is the regular price. Right now, you can get in, and this is only for this group, at half price. That allows you to save $175. The first 10 writers get in at $175. The second 10 writers get in at $195, and then it continues up from there. So, I would encourage you to take advantage of this as quickly as you can. Get in at that special. All you got to do for that is go to this link. Just write this down, bit.ly, bit.ly/I am rewriting. There's no capitals, no spaces in there, no dashes, just bit.ly/I am rewriting. Now, here's the bonus that we're adding to this. When you get done with this class, or really at any time during the class, we will give you a full script feedback on your script. This comes from our system. This is an AI system that we specifically created for writers that gives feedback. We have a whole bunch of different ways we give feedback. That's in our membership. But as part of this class, and this is the only time we've ever done this, you can use that AI feedback on your script that goes to the specifics. I would recommend you use it at the very end, and that way you can go back and work with it and make the next level of changes. Or if you feel like you need to, you can use it at the beginning. You can use it as soon as we start this class. So that gives you another level at which you can improve, at which you can do this. It takes 5 minutes to get that feedback total. And you get it immediately. It has a whole bunch of, it tells you what you did great. It gives you a bunch of different ideas for improvement. You can just immediately make those and move forward. So again, just come join us. Right now, you can get in at half price if you're one of the first 10. If you miss this and you go to $195, I promise you, this class is still going to be absolutely worth it. If you are somebody who is entering contests, please know the people that you're up against that are winning have been through this program or have done something that got them to a level of a pro. You're up against our people. You're up against the ones who are already doing all of this work. And the other thing I'll tell you is going through this will give you so many breakthroughs. It will improve who you are as a writer, and you will use this rewrite process from now on with every script you ever write. And especially if you end up working with producers, this will save your ass so many times. I've had producers, many producers actually, tell me they love working with our writers, and a big part of it is because they're able to do anything when it comes to a rewrite. They're pros. They know what they're doing. They've already done it before in this class and with their present script. So again, jump in. Be one of those first 10 writers. Go to, just write this link down, put it in your browser where you normally put a web address, click return, and this becomes the first step on the way to you becoming a truly great writer. So with that, it was great hanging out with you guys. I hope you got something out of today already. And I promise you, going through this class will truly change your life as a writer. With that, this is Hal Krosman wishing you the absolute best. Bye-bye, everyone.